There's not nearly enough granular, nerdy conversation about art techniques on the internet, and so this is me doing my part. Today I'm looking at the artwork of Philip Solma Ehrlich von Liechtenstein, who is a landscape painter, and according to the profile picture, a pixelated extraterrestrial. And here's just a few of the things that Ehrlich is doing very well that any illustrator should take note of. The first one is leading lines. This is where you'll have lines come from the outside and push inward onto the composition of the painting and direct the eye towards something important or somewhere the artist wants you to go. Good landscape painters will do this in a way that's relatively subtle. It'll be the top edges of mountains or of trees or even light itself, crafting a line to push your attention in. I also like with Ehrlich's work how there's frequently a path or a chasm on the ground that leads you further into the painting, sometimes by a more winding path than the leading lines you see further up the frame. Now these are common techniques to use leading lines to point you towards the focal point of an image. And Ulrich certainly does that, whether it be to this little church off in the distance or to this Tudor-style castle, the clear and obvious place for the viewer's eye to go, the leading lines just help. But in some cases, Ulrich will push you instead further into the painting, and then off to the side, just by contrast, you'll see the thing that's really the heart of the painting. So you go in deep, and then you just notice something of interest. It makes it feel like you're finding something. Now, the way he does that and pulls your eye is really the next thing. It's a great command of visual hierarchy. Good landscape painters never just give you a place to travel without a guide. They push you through. Leading lines is a part of this, but there's other elements too. If you have a field of things that are all the same, your eye is automatically going to go to whatever has contrast to it, no matter what contrast variable it uses. So with great subtlety, Ehrlich will push your eye towards one thing by having it stand out not with maximum contrast, but with a tempered and minimum contrast to pull your eye gently from one area to another in the painting. But my favorite thing that Ehrlich does with landscape painting is scale. You feel extremely small as the viewer looking at these landscapes, and from experience, I can tell you this is quite a bit harder to do than you might think. There's this impulse that we have to make things larger within the frame, whereas good landscape painting requires you to set that aside and to make the landscape itself the subject, and frequently that means a lot of sky. Giving a landscape room to breathe is actually a technique that you have to learn. But one of the things I like so much about it is he utilizes scale like the best landscape artists do. If you look at the work of Albert Bierstadt, for example, with whom Ehrlich definitely shares a lot of style and technique, one thing his work captures is the sense of smallness, how insignificant we are in these places. One of the reasons I think that's so important for landscape painting, and one reason I think it's such a good aspect of Ehrlich's work, is you're supposed to feel small. And then when you look at it, you get some of the sense of the humility that comes with standing in front of something grand and realizing that your place in this landscape is minimal. That in a way, it's a protagonist and you are not. Without being cruel, without being harsh, the landscape is in many ways indifferent to you. It's warm, it's welcoming, but it also preceded you and will live past you. Some of that truth is transmitted through that feeling of smallness you get when you look at the work of a great landscape painter.